The island where only one man could be free. Hegel's master-slave dialectic. Two men washed up on the same reef in the same storm, and for the first 3 days they were simply grateful to be alive. On the fourth day, they found there was only one dry cave on the whole island, and only one spring that didn't taste of salt, and it became clear that gratitude was not going to be enough. Neither of them wanted to share. Bogdan was younger, quicker, and certain that certainty was a kind of strength. Ferran was older, slower to anger, but immovable once he decided something. They fought over the cave with their fists, then with a length of driftwood. Then, when Ferran produced a knife he kept hidden in his boot, with something that was no longer a fight, but a trial. Bogdan understood, somewhere in the middle of it, that Ferran would rather die than yield the cave, and that he, Bogdan, would rather yield the cave than die. So he did. He dropped the driftwood and said the word that ended it, enough. And from that afternoon on, the island had a master and a servant. It seemed at first like the better outcome for Ferran. He took the cave. He took the fire. He decided when they ate and what Bogdan gathered the wood, hauled the water, wove the nets, and Ferran approved or didn't. Ate first, ate more, and required that Bogdan addressed him as a man addresses someone above him. Years passed this way, if you could call them years, on an island, with no calendar but the tide, and something strange happened, which neither man had predicted on the day of the fight. Ferran, who had won, could no longer do anything. He had not touched a net in a decade. His hands had gone soft in a way that embarrassed him when he noticed it, which he tried not to. Every meal on his plate, every wall of the shelter, every rope and hook and healed wound on the island had passed through Bogdan's hands, not his. Ferran sat in the cave he'd won and looked out at a world that Bogdan had built almost entirely, and Bogdan's hands had grown certain, calloused, capable, in exactly the way that Ferran's had gone soft. And the deference Ferran demanded, the bowed head, the yes master, began to curdle in his ears the longer he heard it. He had wanted to be seen as superior by another man, but the man doing the seeing was one Ferran had spent years insisting was beneath him, was barely a man at all, was a pair of hands and nothing more. What good is being looked up by someone whose gaze you've declared worthless? Ferran had won a stage with no audience on it. The one person whose recognition could have meant anything, an equal, standing free, choosing to grant it, had never been in the cave at all. Bogdan, meanwhile, had built the island. Every knot, every wall, every fire that caught on the first strike. Now, these were his, unmistakably, in a way that had nothing to do with Ferran's opinion of him. He had gone to the nets a captive, and come back, net after net, year after year, a craftsman. He no longer needed Ferran to call him anything. He had made a world, and in it, whether Ferran noticed or not, he could see exactly what he was. This isn't a story about an island. It's the shape of an argument that G.W.F. Hegel makes in one of the most influential passages of the Phenomenology of Spirit, 1807. The section on self-consciousness usually translated as Lordship and Bondage, or the Master-Slave Dialectic. Hegel's starting claim is that self-consciousness isn't something you have alone in your head. You only become fully aware of yourself as a self by being recognized as one by another self-consciousness. Recognition is the medium in which selfhood actually forms. But recognition, for Hegel, has to be one, and the first way to self-consciousness meets is as a threat to each other. Each wants to be recognized without recognizing back, which produces what he calls a life and death struggle. Here's the twist that makes it a dialectic rather than just a fight. The one who is willing to risk death to win becomes the master, but the one who backs down, who values his own life over the fight, becomes the bondsman, precisely because he chose survival over the pure abstract standoff. Fear of death is the birth of servitude. What happens next is the part people usually remember, because it inverts what you'd expect. The master gets service, but the recognition he receives is worthless, because it comes from someone he has already defined as not fully his equal. You can't be genuinely validated by a consciousness you refuse to acknowledge as a consciousness. Worse, the master becomes utterly dependent, mediated from the material world, entirely through the bondsman's labor. He consumes, but he no longer does. The bondsman, meanwhile, is put to work transforming raw material, and Hegel treats labor as formative, not just degrading. In shaping the external world through sustained, disciplined activity, the bondsman comes to see his own agency objectified back at him in what he's made. He develops self consciousness that's independent of the master opinion, because it's now grounded in something durable and self evidently his own transformative work on the world. This passage becomes one of the most productively misread and reused arguments in later continental thought. Marx took the account of labor and alienation and built an entire theory of class and production on top of it, stripping away Hegel's idealism but keeping the insight that labor forms consciousness. Alexander Kochev's 20th century lectures on Hegel, filtered through a heavily historicized reading of struggle and recognition, shaped existentialism and influenced Sartre's account in Being and Nothingness of the look, how being seen by another consciousness can strip away your sense of being a free subject and turn you into an object. Frantz Fanon later drew on the same dialectic to describe colonial recognition, where the colonized subject's humanity is denied by the very structure that depends entirely on his labor to sustain itself. The core move to hold onto is this: dominance and dependency aren't opposites sitting still. They're a relationship that keeps working on both people inside it, and it doesn't always tip the way the winner of the first fight expects. Thanks for tuning in to the Myth of Logos. Until next time.